All right. Let me turn the music off so we can start our meeting. Again, welcome everybody to our meeting, to our group, The Evolving Story of Women. And I will tell you a little bit about ourselves. Before we started, some logistics. So if there is a bad connection, if you cannot see us, just sign off and get in again with the same link. Regina will be monitoring the chat. You can put your question in the chat, and at the end of the presentation today, we will have Q&As. And also, if you have questions during the presentation, put them in the chat. So let's see, it's not what I want. I want to tell you about our group. And all right, guys, keep you muted, keep yourself muted during the presentation, and we'll have open mic if you want at the end of the presentation. So a little bit about our group. We call ourselves advocacy group, The Evolving Story of Women. So we advocate for a group of women, survivors and professionals, some of us survivors, some of us professional or both, to stop sexual violence and empower women. Our mission is to educate through advocacy in school, colleges, workplaces, build a one-stop resource for anyone who has or is currently experiencing sexual violence, provide a safe place for you to share your stories, connect with other survivors, and heal together, create sustained policy changes at local, state, and federal level. And we collaborate with many different organizations, and also our mission to empower women to stop sexual violence and also improve their self-esteem and self-being and be happy and healthy in their life. And today we have a great presentation. I'm gonna have a gallery view for now so we can see so many people. And today's presentation we have, actually I'm gonna introduce myself before we introduce our speaker today. I'm Larissa Sharipova. I'm a co-founder of The Evolving Story of Women. And also I'm a lifestyle doctor specializing in women's health, co-founder of this group, also published author of Listen to Your Body and Regain Your Health, and many other things that I do, particularly related to women's health, so make women happy and healthy and help them to reach their goals. And I want to introduce my friend and co-founder, Susan Kay. Susan?
Hi, Dr. Susan Kay, board certified sexologist. Larissa and I have several projects together and working with body, mind, and ultimately spirit, health and wellness and connection. We also have my team and I have the Institute for Integrative Mind-Body Therapies, where we take a look at who are the neck up practitioners and what service do they provide our clients, and who are the neck down practitioners and what service can and do they provide our clients.
Okay, my next co-host and co-founder of our group, Regina.
Regina, hi, I'm an artist, Reiki master, and author of On a Clear Day, and just helping out doing this women's and men's, birthing into the new.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, my co-hosts and co-founders, to join me today as well. Today's speaker, and we invite anybody who would like to share their story and also the healing journey. And if you're practitioners or healer working in this area, reach out to us and we can arrange for you to speak and talk about your journeys, your work. And today's speaker, Michele Lyons. She is a clinical sexologist and certified sex coach who also hold a master in expressive art therapy. Combining these two healing modalities, she's a San Diego's first expressive art sex coach. As a survivor and thriver of early sexual trauma, she specializes in coaching women to assess confidence in their sexuality and themselves so they can create authentic, passionate relationships. Michele used the power of art in her sessions to elicit information that might be difficult to express in words. With her practice of expressive art and her certified and applied polyvagal theory in therapeutic yoga, Michele offers an integrated body-mind practice. She believes that finding one's full sexual expression can bring vitality and a sense of well-being to her clients. Michele's practice, based in San Diego, California, consists of one-on-one coaching, couple coaching, and workshops that explore the range of women's sexual expression. Michele works online and in person, and you can find her at michelelyons.com. Welcome, Michele.
Thank you.
So I would like to ask you questions, and also if you can share your story. What was your story of sexual abuse and when it happened? And you can give us as much detail as you want, and we start from there.
Okay. Wow. I'm really touched to be here. And I might tear up at certain points because this is really the first time that I've come out publicly with my story. And I've told my story a lot. And this is like a whole new way to do it, to bring my wounding out into the public.
Before you started then, I know it's very touchy subject and it's touchy for everybody and can also bring some emotions for some other people who can relate to your story. So I would like to give some, tips that how you can help yourself during the any, emotional trigger points. So we can take a breath, deep breath, like we can start now before we start our, or before you start talking. Let's do like some 3 deep breaths, like breathe in and breathe out. Again, breathe in, breathe out. And last one, breathe in, breathe out. Another tip, when you become emotional, you can put your hands on your heart or even like crisscross when you talk or when you become emotional, like hug yourself or pet yourself. So that's also release your stress or a sympathetic response to whatever experience you have. You can hug yourself like that. It's also help to be safe. Okay. Yeah. Right. And we will be hugging you. Virtual hugs. All right. So yes, tell us your story as much as we can, and we're gonna hug you virtually.
All right. Thank you. Well, I grew up in a family with 5 kids. My father was a doctor. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. And we lived in a neighborhood with lots and lots of kids. And my best friend lived right next door. And we would go over to her house to play. And they had a big, big living room. And we would all hang out in the living room. And the dad would come. And he would give us horseback rides to each of the kids. And so when I got my ride after, going around the living room, he very sneakily would adjust me. And he would adjust me in the way that he would touch my genitals. And it felt uncomfortable. And at the same time, it felt good. And so we would continue doing it. You know, I would go over there, we do the horsey back rides, and little by little, he would take me into a room where the boys slept. There were bunk beds there, and he would start to expose himself to me. And I didn't tell anybody. This was a time where, I mean, I didn't even cross my mind to tell my parents at all. I just took it all in and continued to engage with him. So it was like this little game that we had together. It was secret. There was some sort of intrigue about it. And at home, I was the middle child of 5 kids. I adored my father. Definitely was not getting any attention from him. And looking back on it, this is where I was getting attention. And I remember other times where I would walk down the hallway, and his bedroom, the parents' bedroom was at the end of the hallway, and he'd be standing there with his underwear on, with his penis exposed. And he would, it was like we locked eyes, and then I would just walk away. So it was a game of fondling, a game of making me look at him. And I don't have a whole lot of memories, but probably touching him, or it was getting to that point of touching him. And I remember one pivotal day, I went over to the house to look for my friend. And I went down into the bedroom. She wasn't there. And it was a kind of a neighborhood where I could just let myself in. That was what we did in those days. We just let ourselves into the house. The doors weren't locked. So I went looking for her, looked all over the house. She wasn't there. And I realized I was alone in the house. And I was standing right in the door jamb going into the kitchen. And the dad, he came up behind me, and he started pressing up against me. And my little brain, I was like 7 or 8 years old when this was happening. And my little brain said, this is turning dangerous. Do not do this anymore. So at that point, I completely stopped being involved in the game. I didn't go over there alone. I didn't ever let myself be alone with him. And it stopped. And I remember when I was in 4th grade, we had to, at my family, we were adding on to our house, and I had to go stay at their house for a week. And I was so uncomfortable going over to their house to stay for a week. And of course, there was nothing that went on. And I know that experience set me up for 3 other incidences of sexual assault. So, and I never told anybody. I'm sure I know I had shame about it. I was scared. My parents never knew. They never asked. I was pretty much like a lost child. So then when I turned about 13 or 14, I started hanging, my older sister introduced me to a gang of bikers that hung out at the beach. And I started hanging out with them, gave them my phone number. And they would call me at night and I would spend the night. I would sneak out of the house and spend the night with them. And it was dangerous. My parents never knew. It was dangerous. They would take me on in their cars, on their motorcycles. I carried their drugs for them. And they would take me to a really bad part of town here in San Diego. And then basically they would use me sexually. Lots and lots of heavy petting. Thank God I never had intercourse with them. I didn't take my clothes off, but it was a lot of sexual using of me. And then I would go with one person for a couple of months, and then they would pass me on to someone else. And then I would go to another person for a couple of months. And then I got passed on to someone else to be used, to carry their drugs, or to be their little sexual pet. And then that went on probably, I don't know, maybe 9 months to a year. And at the time also, it was like, where were my parents? There was nobody watching out for me. I'd spent the night out all night by myself, come in the early morning. There was nobody there watching out for me. And which led me to the next one, my next sexual assault, where there was a man up the street. And also during this time, I was a teenager. I had hormones surging. I was very, very, had lots of energy, was very like active, but really the only outlet I had was swimming, was in a local pool. And so with these other assaults that I had, I started having this kind of like this desire and this like an adrenaline rush from danger, secrets, and intrigue. And I started living a completely double life. On the outside, I looked like a nice Catholic girl. My parents had no idea what was going on. And so there was a man up the street who was married, a young couple. And I'd be walking down in the neighborhood, and he would be out in his garage fixing his car. And I would stop by and hang out with him. And eventually he would his wife was gone. It was on Saturdays. His wife was gone to work in a bank during the day. So he knew that she wasn't going to be home. And little by little, he would take me into the house. We'd be in the TV room, sitting on the couch. And I don't have a whole lot of memories of exactly how it started, but I imagine he would have me sit next to him, put his hand on my leg. And I didn't know how to say no. I didn't resist. It was exciting. It felt good. And I just went with it. And again, my parents, where were my parents? They weren't watching out. And so eventually, probably was, I don't know how long it went on, maybe, 9 months. Eventually we had almost, we were completely naked, full on. We never had intercourse, but full on everything else. And I was 15 years old. Yeah. So after that, I got a steady boyfriend, and then that whole situation stopped. But it surely set me up to be promiscuous in many, many ways, and to do very, very dangerous things. And I'm really grateful that that I wasn't hurt. I always say my mother was Catholic. My mother prayed a lot, and I think in that way she was helping me. I had a very strong Catholic upbringing, which was all about do not have sex before you're married. I think that's part of what helped me. And I'd had a lot of scarring and a lot of wounding. And throughout the years, I've done enormous amount of healing, enormous amount of personal growth work, over 30 years of personal growth work. I've done enormous amount of sexual healing. And with my partner, Rick, who just signed off, we've been together for 6 years and have done a lot of sexual healing between us. And I do have to say that signing up for the sex coaching program, it was almost like a natural evolution for me to become a sex coach. When I was when I did my expressive arts degree, my master's in expressive arts, my thesis was about Eros on the road to recovery. I worked with veterans who were in a drug and alcohol residential facility. And it was all about using the senses and the sensory input and how that can be helpful to stay present and can be helpful for recovery. So it was a natural evolution for me to become where I am today. Mm-hmm. And all the healing that I've done. And now I have the opportunity to use my story, to use what I've learned to help other women.
Okay. I have to please mute yourself if you just got in. Thank you, Michelle. 1 second, we have to mute. Okay, Isabella was unmuted. She just got in.
Thank you.
All right, Michelle, can I ask you a few questions?
Please do. Yes.
So during your experiences in your childhood and teenage years, what was your coping mechanism with all that stress that was put on you? Or what was your coping mechanism? How did you survive through all that?
I think one of the ways that I survived was through my imagination. I was very creative. We as kids, we lived close to a canyon, and we would romp and roam all day long in the canyon and, make up stories about castles in our own neighborhoods. And I think that's one of the coping mechanisms was was using my imagination and also using my sensory, my mindfulness. Of course, I didn't know it then, but using my sensory, like I loved going outside. I love to look at beautiful nature. I think nature also was one of my coping mechanisms because we lived close to nature. We had a big backyard with a garden and trees. Also, I had friends. That was another coping mechanism, was friends whom I could play with and, use our imaginations together, go out and, I loved playing dolls and using my imagination, using my dolls. And I had, as a teenager, I had a desire. I had a desire to be a psychologist. I just knew I loved emotions. I loved talking to people. So I had intellectual stimulation. I read a lot. I was a voracious reader. That was another one of my coping mechanisms.
And so during your experiences, you didn't talk to anybody, but would you like to talk to somebody when you were a child or when you were a teenager? You wish you talked to somebody, or did you try to talk to anybody about your experiences?
Larissa, it didn't even cross my mind to talk with anybody. It wasn't in my realm. It didn't even occur to me that I could even talk to anybody, because where I grew up and in the era that I grew up, you didn't talk about anything that was happening to you personally. Everything was just all about that the house looked good, the kids were well taken care of, and that was all that mattered. And I know that if I had had a confidant, if I had had someone who would have taken me under their wing, it would have made a huge difference. A huge difference.
So you were not as close to your mom or your parents to talk about it? Or
no, it's not close to them at all.
Can you tell me more about your relationship with with your parents?
Yes, my mother was depressed, clinically depressed, and she ended up at some point when I was a teenager in a menstrual institute for a period of time, and she received 10 shock treatments. So she was pretty much out of the picture. Mm-hmm. She was trying to survive her own mental illness. Mm-hmm. And she had 5 kids, and she was not available at all.
Any of your siblings?
Okay, I had none of my siblings. I had an older sister who was 6 years older than I, who I adored. But she was on her own. Actually, she was a really not very nice sister. And I was really needy with her. And she would get away, Michele. I don't want anything to do with you. And then my other sister, who had introduced me to the bikers, we were doing this together. But then after a couple of months, she met someone and she became a born again Christian. So she was like, oh my God, get away from me, Michele. You are not doing the right stuff. So I basically, I had no one.
Did you wish that you had someone to talk to?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
would it change your life at that time?
Oh
if
my
you-
God, it would have changed everything. If
Mhm.
someone were there, if someone had been there to give me some sort of guidance, to say to me, it's not okay what you're doing, and I'm going to watch out for you, that would have made all the difference in the world.
Did you feel depressed or had anxiety at that period?
I was definitely depressed. Yeah, yeah. I would hole up in my room and read and eat bowls and bowls of ice cream. I was definitely depressed.
Mhm. So that was your coping mechanism.
That was definitely, food was one of my
Yeah.
coping mechanisms. Yes, yes.
To nurture yourself with
To nurture myself and to,
Mhm.
yeah, and to read, to get out into another world.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. When you were churchgoers and doing non-religion things with your family, or not at all?
Well, I was a churchgoer until I was about 10 years old. And then I could see the hypocrisy in the Catholic Church. And then I stopped going to church.
Okay. So you
But,
did not you did not believe in the religion.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But before that, I was a very, as a young child, we went to church. I went to Catholic school, and we went to church every day before school. And I was very, very spiritual and wanted to become a nun. But after the experiences I had, I wasn't going to become a nun. I was the wild child.
And you didn't feel comfortable to talk anybody in church, right? When you were a child.
No way. That would have been shame. And I think also looking back on it, there was so much shame going on. If I had said anything to my family, I would have been shamed doubly. Like they would have maybe made it my fault.
Mhm.
So I knew in some ways, I knew that I couldn't tell anybody because it would have been exposed what I had been doing.
Mhm.
And then I wouldn't know how to deal with that shame. I would have been rejected. So it was almost like a life or death. Just keep it secret.
Mhm.
And you won't be rejected by your family and your community.
How would this all your experiences affect your personal relationship and sexual relationship late in your life?
I would say that I was sexually promiscuous, and I ended up in relationships that were not healthy.
Mhm.
You know, for example, I moved in my late 20s, early 30s. I moved to Mexico City, and I, I hooked up with men that were not healthy for me. And in fact, I had moved to Acapulco before Mexico City, hooked up with a man and who was a boyfriend of the manager of the school that I was working at, an English language school that I was working at. And she found out about it, and I basically was kicked out of Acapulco. I had no job, I had no home, nothing. And I had such a drive to stay in Mexico. It was such a passion for me. I called up a family in Mexico City and said, I need a place to stay. And I moved to Mexico City and made my life for 4 years in Mexico City. And then I got involved with another man in Mexico City who was a con artist. And eventually we broke up, and immigration came looking for me to find him. They knew I didn't have working papers, and they basically said, you have to leave. You cannot live here. You cannot work here anymore. So I had to leave Mexico City. And it was because of men. That my radar was not a healthy radar to choose men. at all. And actually now I've been with Rick for 6 years. It's the healthiest relationship I've ever had.
Have you ever been married?
Yes, yes. I was married for 5 years, another crazy relationship. I had 2 children, and my ex-husband left, asked for a divorce when I was 2 months pregnant with my second child. So yeah, it's taken a toll on my relationships. Not having any guidance of making it up myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
And on the other hand, I'm amazed at how much how much I've grown, how much I've accomplished, how much I've healed, despite what happened to me. Like I have a really strong survival instinct. Like a love for life.
When did you start your healing journey, and why? Why you decide that you need to change something?
Well, it was actually after my divorce, because I knew that I said to myself, I'm never, ever going to let this happen again. To have a man leave me when I was 2 months pregnant, I had to take responsibility for that. And I would never, ever let that happen to myself again. So that's when I started my really, really deep dive into my healing.
What was your relationship to yourself? How did you talk to yourself? What was your emotions?
The way that I talked to myself was with hope and using my imagination again. I could always imagine that there was a bigger life for me. And really, ever since I was a kid, I always knew I had some sort of potential to be a leader or to be out in the world. So I always talked to myself about the possibility, about new possibilities. And I knew if I healed myself, that good things would happen. I always knew that good things would happen. And I had some amazing therapists, amazing workshops I did, amazing sexual healing workshops I did that that took me to this amazing place of healing.
What are the healing modalities? Can you tell me more?
Yes. I did group therapy. I did individual therapy. I started a meditation practice early in the 80s. Actually, when I was living in Mexico City, I started meditating. So I've been meditating for many years. I did Landmark for many years. That was there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. I've done healing workshops for women. I did Body Electric, which is a body electric school, which is a whole weekend about the body and loving women's bodies. And just a second, let me get a Kleenex. Okay, I'm back.
And we can do one deep breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Thank you, Michele. Thank you.
Yes. So in this body electric workshop for women, it was a workshop where women eventually, throughout the weekend, we got naked with each other. We showed each other our bodies. We danced with each other. Another one was orgasmic meditation. And that was probably about 10 years ago. And that is that's a practice. It's a mindful meditation practice using the body, and there's a stroker and a strokee. Two people are together. And during the practice, one person will stroke the clitoris of another person. And it's all about, there's no goal in it. It's about how much sensation you can feel. So it's a mindfulness practice. And then the two people afterwards talk about what sensations they felt in the body, and they do it for 15 minutes, and that's it. It's a very sacred ritual. And then also when I became a sex coach, every course that I took, it was concerns about men, concerns about women. There was the didactic, the knowledge that I was learning, but then there was always the opportunity to use all of the information in a personal way. So being a seeker a seeker for emotional intelligence, and a seeker for health and for well-being, I would always use every exercise that we had on a personal level. And it was really sweet because I was involved with Rick when I was in the program. And it was like every month, okay, Michele, what do we get to practice this month? So I got to practice.
And you said you had therapy also, right?
Yes, I had a lot of traditional talk therapy. And group therapy, working with other people, working with my inner child.
I believe that our trauma stored in our body. Do you have any physical discomfort in your body, pain, or any other illnesses that can come out from your traumas in your life?
Yes. I'm just now discovering those. I have a syndrome. It's called restless leg syndrome, where it's a compulsion to move my legs, and it's a feeling of behind my knees. It's a feeling of like 1,000 ants crawling around. The sensation is horrendous. And this is a real diagnosis. It's called restless leg syndrome. And people really do have it. And I have to move my legs. I have to kick and scream and move my legs. And really my legs they're saying is like, get me out of here. And I have the sensation at night. I don't have it during the day. It comes on at night. And I've been working with a somatic experiencing therapist. And I'm realizing that all my teenage trauma going out with the bikers, it happened at night. And I was so anxious and so stressed out at night that I do believe that that's what's playing out with my legs.
I'm glad that you work with specializing in trauma-informed healing and psychosomatic experience.
Yes, yes, it's been a huge healing.
Mhm.
Mhm. Very, very profound.
Also, question about your sex life. Did your experiences affected how you were in your sexual relationship with your husband, with other partners? Did it affect you in any way?
Yes, because I was very, very adventurous, and so in that way, like, what I love about myself is that I never let my sensuality wane. Well, I mean, it waned and ebbed, of course, but I never let it go completely. I didn't shut down.
You did not dissociate from it.
There are,
because this is our coping mechanism. Usually we dissociate from the experience, and that's when we experience problem later on in life.
right, but normally most of my life I did not disassociate that I know of.
Mhm.
What I found was that, so in other words, my sex life was pretty good. You know, I was orgasmic, and I loved sex. I loved doing new things. But what I found was that eventually, as my hormones decreased and I didn't have a lot of libido, that when I did have sex, I would start to imagine that sexual charge that was there when I was being molested. And I remember as a teenager masturbating and using that sexual charge as when I was being molested, using that as a stimulant.
Like arousal, like excitement.
Excitement. It gave me more
arousal of your sexual, yeah.
Right. It gave me more sensation. And so I realized with my current partner, there would be times I would be completely off, gone. I was not present with him. I was off imagining, using my imagination to keep the sex going. And finally, because of our deep relationship, I was able to, little by little, let him in on what I was doing, which was this huge healing between us, to be that vulnerable, to say, when I'm with you, I'm not here, I'm off fantasizing and bringing up that sexual charge when I was being molested. And it helps.
Yeah.
And it helps me.
Great.
And being the loving person that he is and accepting, he said, it's okay, Michele. I just want to know where you are. You do what you need to do. I just want to know where you are. And through the years, it's gotten so much better that I'm not dissociating, because I'm building up this trust with him.
Yeah, and trust is very important, because you did not have trust through your childhood and teenage years and late in life. So yes, it's very hard to trust somebody again.
Yes, yes, yes. It was really, really hard.
I have a question about your children.
Mm-hmm.
What was your what your relationship with your children, and also have you ever taught them about sexual relationship and how to be the best person they can be?
Yes, I did. I mean, when my kids were growing up, I did talk to them about body parts. There's genitals, and that if someone touches them, that's not okay. They have the right to say no. I was also, I was open about sexuality, talking to them about it. And I don't know if I've ever come out specifically and told them. I mean, I think they do know that I was molested, but they don't know the details of it.
Right. And you have trusted relationship with your kids, so they can come and tell you, because you didn't have your good relationship with your parents. How about your relationship with your kids, or your kids with you? Do you think they're comfortable?
I have an amazing, amazing relationship with my kids. Both of my kids come to me. They talk to me about their emotional lives, as much as is appropriate. My son more than my daughter. And it's, I mean, they know that I'm a safe person to come to. And they know, they see the growth that I've made. So yeah, I'm very close to my kids. My son and his wife live here in San Diego, and my daughter and her husband live in Utah.
Why, Michele, thank you for telling your story and your healing journey. And would you tell us about your practice, what you do now when you come to this, or come out of all these experiences and heal yourself? How do you help other people?
Yes. Well, I am an expressive arts sex coach, which means that I get to I have the fabulous opportunity of using the power of the arts with my sex coaching. So in expressive arts, we use all the art disciplines in a low skill, safe way. You don't have to have any sort of art experience at all. It's using the visual arts, movement, poetry, dance, in a low skill way. So for example, I might say to a client, when they're having with a sensation in their body, something that feels really uncomfortable for them, I'll say, would you please, on this piece of paper with line, color, and shape, please tell us what it looks like. Show me what it looks like. And then we get to have a piece of art that can be a one level removed, and we can talk about what's going on in the art and use that in a way to express what's going on. And especially with sexuality, it's such a vulnerable, tender place that the arts can hold the tenderness and the suffering and the joy.
It's like with kids, when they cannot express their emotions, they draw pictures how they feel.
Right.
When you don't have words to your emotions, I think that's the best way to put on the papers. Particularly if you don't know the words of the emotions, you can even write to express them, so you can paint them. That's a very great way to express.
You can dance them out. And it's the idea that the arts have a language of their own. And there are times with my clients that they have made a picture, and we start talking about the picture, and this whole story comes out, maybe about sexual abuse or something that happened with their partner that might not have ever come out by just talking about it. But the art holds, I mean, the art has messages for us. it's a piece on its own. We can allow the art to speak back to us.
If you have some pieces of art from your clients, I would like to see, or we would like to see what, for example, like some examples.
Okay, let me share it. I know we're at time.
Yes, and if anybody have questions to Michele, you can post them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask the questions. Susan and Regina, if you have some questions, you can ask Michele.
I have something I'd like to add. You know, being an artist myself, and I had a very hard time talking about things and expressing some emotions. And like Michele saying, it does help. These drawings help you unwind something. And who knows how it works, but it works. And there's feelings that are sometimes undescribable. And when you start doing the artwork, somehow you can understand it. Your body is having a feeling and your mind's having a feeling, but it's confusing feelings. So I think it clears up and helps you to decide or come to a conclusion of what's trying to make its way out, you know, and be free.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And the great thing of having a piece of art or a dance or a poem is that you always have that to refer back to.
Yes.
So this was a client came to me. He had a spanking fetish, and he had lots and lots of shame around it. And this was a time where we went into the body and feeling that the shame was in his stomach. And I asked him, I offered that he draw it. And this is what it came out of it. And it was this, and what he said was, this pink part is boys get made fun of if they like pink. And then this part was feeling like the liberation of it. Like I worked with him on having a new narrative, that this was a normal, this was just a part of him. And that this was his unique erotic turn on, that we all have that. It's like our fingerprint. It's unique to all of us. And we did amazing things in this sessions. And eventually he's married now, has a great wife, because he had left a marriage and was looking for a woman who really embraced all of him. This was, let me show you, this one was, he was a very creative person. And this was a surprise. He had no clue what was going to come out in his art. And after he finished this picture, he goes, oh my God, that's my guitar. Mm-hmm. And really what I need to get back to is my creativity and my guitar. So that was one of the home assignments, was get to that guitar and start being creative again. So those are a couple of the pictures.
This looks like broken strings of the guitar.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Wow, thank you, Michele. I'm so happy for you that you could express your story and tell us. And I believe that every time we tell our stories, we heal one layer at a time. So I'm very grateful for you to speak today and have one more layer out of your experiences and life story. And we are very appreciated for you to share your story. Anybody else want to say something, ask Michele any questions? No? And I know we are not having our December meeting, but we have some gifts for you so you can experience, and we will send recording to people who registered today, and we will post recording in our Facebook group, The Evolving Story of Women. If you are not in the group, you can join our group and share anything that you would like in a group. And I know Regina has something to close our meeting for today.
And Larissa, I just want to say one last thing, is that I do have a gift for everyone.
Yeah.
It's a document the 3 insights for sexual resiliency. If anybody wants to drop their email in the chat, I will send that to you. And in March, excuse me, I have an 8-week course, an expressive arts sex coaching course for women who have experienced a Me Too situation in their life it's in person. I'll be doing it here in San Diego in March.
If Michelle, if you can send me the links, I can send them out along with the recording, so people can click on the links and look in your information.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, Michelle. I give you love.
Yes.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Regina, yes.
Okay. So do you want to put that pretty music on? And I just wanted to say, Michelle, I have such love for you for sharing. I really do. My heart feels so open to you. And thank you very much for being brave and illuminating us as well. So.
And Regina has her own story, which is, also.
Yeah, very parallel.
Parallel, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just going to do a little list.
94% of people.
Okay, give me just 1 second. Yes. All right. Music is on.
Okay, so we're just going to do a little mindfulness. I'm going to just read a little, I don't know if it's a mindful prayer for ourselves. So if you can just close your eyes and take a deep breath. As I close my eyes today, I remember being a beautiful young spirit that was filled with freedom and joy for life. Life was always feeling new and full of surprises, some good, some not so good. Today, I want to let go of situations that no longer serve my spirit. I must forgive myself for experiences that were put upon me by ignorance. For whatever the circumstances that scarred my heart, forgiveness is the way out. I forgive myself for many reasons that are personal to me. Please take a breath and breathe that in. I must somehow find a way to release ill will towards another for my health's sake, as hard as that may be. I will decide how to deal with these feelings of hate, confusion, betrayal, love, and safety on my own terms and with help from people who care for my spirit and soul. And there are many. I make this choice for my healing and my freedom. Let's breathe that in. For my spirit and soul need my attention to walk forward in a way that is best and beautiful and free for me. And that's our closing for today. I'd like to thank you all for being here now with us and taking the time out to illuminate yourself and show love towards humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Have a blessed day. Anybody have questions? You want to say something? Isabella, you can unmute yourself, no? Just want to say goodbye? All right. All right, thank you, everybody. And a lot of thanks to you, Michelle, for sharing your story. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for being here and witnessing me.
Thank you. Love to you and to everybody. Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Stay tuned.